Hi, it's Elliott from GetintheMix. I've got the Model D out today, the Behringer Model D. Just going to do a quick run view of basically what it can do, what it's got, and yeah, let you make your mind up for yourselves if it's something that you think you'd be interested in or not. So yeah, once you've got it out, it is an analog unit, so I would recommend leaving it on for 10 to 15 minutes before you start using it. It's just so the analog circuitry can warm up, the tuning stabilizes. I mean, there is obviously once you start using it, one good function that I've found is really helpful actually. When I first got it out of the box, it was what I used straight away. It's just an A note, 440 Hertz. You just turn it on, so then you can obviously get an A note on your unit, which sounds out, but then get it in tune. So this tune function here, and then let me just get that off. So this tune function here on the controller section, this actually controls the tuning of all of the oscillators. So if I was to turn on oscillator 2, which does have a fine tune itself here. Same with oscillator 3, even though I haven't got that turned on. This is a global tune effect, which will affect all 3 oscillators no matter what. But for the purpose of getting the unit in tune, cool. Right, so I'm going to go on to the oscillator section now. So for each oscillator, you've got 6 different octaves in which you can go through. So you've got, that's so low you can't even hear it, but it is there. I don't know if you can hear that little click, but it is there. It's just very low. For the first oscillator, you haven't got a fine tune. And the waveforms actually on the first oscillator are different to the waveforms on the second and third oscillators. So with the first oscillator, you've got a triangle, a tri-saw, a saw, a square, a pulse, and then a thinner pulse. So oscillator 2, obviously you've got your fine tune knob there. Then for this one, you've got triangle, tri-saw, saw again, square, pulse, and then a thinner pulse. With the third oscillator, you have just a triangle, a saw, an inverted saw, square, pulse, and then a thinner pulse. Put that on the square wave. Found the square waves probably my favourite type on the synth thing. It's really good. It's proper fat, proper bassy. But yeah, let's move on to the mixer section now. So obviously you've got your on and off switches for your oscillators. Obviously just determines whether they're going through the mixer or not. Then obviously you've got your volume control for each 3 of the oscillators. Additionally to that, you've got a noise oscillator, which has 2 flavours of noise. So you've got white noise and pink noise. And then you have an external volume. So this can come from, you can actually take the mix out of the Model D and stick it back into the Model D. It creates a kind of a really heavy distorted feedback effect. If you're familiar with the Arturia drum brutes, it's somewhat similar to the brute factor on them. So that's kind of handy to have, although it's more better used in small increments, I've found myself, because if you whack it right up, it just gets really out of control. But then again, if you want that really out of controlness, then yeah, it's right up your street. So yes, moving on to the modifiers now. I've made a few notes on this because I've only actually had my hands on this for around a couple of hours, so I'm still really kind of getting a grips of it myself. So obviously you've got your filter, which can operate in high and low pass mode. So you've got your frequency cut off for the filter. Obviously that will determine the frequency. Then you've got your emphasis, which is resonance basically. And then you've got your contour, which is kind of like a key amount / envelope amount for the filter. I'll do some demonstrations later and kind of show you the effect of it. With the envelopes, you've got an envelope for the amplification, or this is called a loudness contour, but yeah, this isn't an ADS envelope. You can actually turn the decay on or off of this envelope. If you turn it off, obviously as soon as you take your finger off that note, the note cuts out immediately. If you turn it on, then the decay will be what you set it at on here. So obviously if you can have that really snappy, or you can have it logging out. I found the envelopes are really quite snappy envelopes. They're really good for percussive sounds, or nice, really like punchy basses. Really good for leads as well. Same deal with the filter envelope. You've got your attack, decay and sustain. You can turn the decay or the decay on or off if you want. You've got a keyboard control as well, and this affects how open or closed the filter is depending on what pitch you're on. So if you heard when I turn them off, the filter almost closed a little bit. When I turn them on, it opens a bit. So, but this kind of, if I go right down, the filter closes. So kind of the filter opens up the higher up you get with your pitch. Filter modulation section here. This is just obviously controlled by the mod mix and the mod depth. When you turn it on, these two items here will directly affect the filter. Like I said, high and low. High and low pass filter, I've already explained that. On your outputs, you've got a main out, so fairly straightforward. There's actually a switch to turn it on and off. I mean, personally myself, I don't really get the function of it, but it's there if you want it. You obviously got a mini jack output to take the main output, the audio output, to another piece of Eurorack gear or anything else really. So that's there. You've obviously got your headphones and then a headphone volume as well. Quickly moving on to the controller section. So this is where it kind of gets a little bit confusing because the routing on this thing can actually be a little bit unclear. I mean, if you go through the manual, it explains everything. Honestly, it's been a godsend for the last couple of hours that I've had it, really. But it is relatively straightforward in all fairness. So let me just get that on. So like I've already explained, you've got your main tune, which is exactly what it says on the tin. You've got glide, which is then you've got your mod mix, and you can choose between going through Oscillator 3 or the filter envelope. I don't know why it says filter EG. This is just how Behringer have done it, but the filter EG basically means the envelope, or you can go to the noise or the LFO. Again, here these are modulation sources, these two switches here. You can set Oscillator 3 as a modulation source, filter envelope as a source, noise as a source, or the LFO as a source. Here is the LFO, so you've got the two waveforms. Sorry, pardon me. So you've got the triangle and then a square wave. You've got your mod depth, which is how much modulation is going to be applied to what you're modulating. So obviously you can apply it in small or large increments. And then you've got your LFO rate as well, which obviously just determines the speed in which the LFO is going at. Lastly, I'm just going to have a kind of just run through the CV ins and outs on the top. Behringer have obviously made this really simple for someone who's kind of maybe just getting into Eurorack, don't really understand it a lot. They've basically made it so clear. So obviously, if you look closely at the, I don't know if you'll be able to see it on these cameras, but the source or the input has a little arrow on it, either going out or in, to make it so clear if if that's where a signal is being sent out, or a control voltage is going to be accepted as an input as opposed to an output. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's really simple. It's really easy to get a grasp of, and I like the way it's done, to be honest. I'm personally, I'm not massively into Eurorack. I haven't actually got any Eurorack stuff at home. I've had a noodle here and there. So for me, being quite new to it, I found it really, really clear to obviously get a hold of. So on the back, as I've quickly forgot to mention, so you've got your power input, your on and off switch, your MIDI channel select, which you can select which MIDI channel the units are on. There's obviously 16 different MIDI channels to choose from. The manual shows the position of each MIDI channel. I'm not going to go into that in detail now. It's very tedious and it's not really that important. And then you've got your main outputs, which you've got a high impedance and a low impedance output. I mean, personally, I've only used the high impedance one at the moment for everything I've been doing with it. So, but that's just me. Again, something that I've actually forgot to mention, you've got your MIDI in and a MIDI through here, as well as your MIDI USB. I'm using USB, but actually at home, when I've been just kind of having a go on it in the evening, I've been using the MIDI in from my keyboard at home. You can use the MIDI through if you want to, say, have MIDI coming into it through a keyboard, in from a keyboard or another source, and then you want to send it through this Model D, but you can actually come it out and go into another Model D, so you can kind of daisy chain Model Ds, or anything really, which is really handy as well. It's good to see that. So that was my little overview of the Behringer Model D. I will be back at some point in the future to do some more run-throughs of more products that we got coming up in the works. Thanks. Hit the subscribe button, comment if you like the video, and yeah, cheers.